Welcome to Single Moms Unfolded. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Kelly Vieira. This is a podcast for single moms created by a single mom to help single moms. This is our safe space to love, to connect, and grow together. Welcome to Single Moms Unfolded. Love, support, and encouragement for single moms. Today we're lucky enough to have Makenna Isabella. How are you doing today, Makenna?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. So we're just going to dive right into it. Today I want to find out what you think a single mom is. What does that mean to you?
So to me, a single mom is, I think somebody that's just, it's not necessarily somebody who doesn't have like either an ex-husband or an ex-boyfriend or ex-fiance that they share a kid with, but just somebody that like does it by themselves, day to day. You can still be I feel you can still be a single mom. Even if you have a co-parenting relationship, you're still a single mom. You're still putting the kids to bed by yourself. You're still making dinner by yourself. You're still picking them up and dropping them off by yourself. You're still, for the most part, the primary parent. It's kind of all laid on you, So
Right, yeah. So do you think there's any misconceptions about single moms?
I think so. I was thinking about that question, and I feel like it's two-part. I think there's misconceptions that we put on ourselves, and then misconceptions that others have for us. And I think in the very beginning, whenever, like you're a new single mom, you have like this misconception that you're unwanted or that you're like secondhand and that's just not the case. It doesn't make you, I feel like as single moms, especially in the beginning when everything's just kind of really raw, that we think that no one's going to want us. So we feel like we're unwanted in the beginning, and that has a lot to do with like the self-esteem and maybe why people don't leave when we should leave. And
yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And then, from the outside looking in, when other people look at single moms, I think that they think that we're unhappy and that we are, that it's hard for us. And it is hard being a single mom is exhausting, but
yeah, for sure. It can be hard.
It's very exhausting, but what's more exhausting is being with somebody that completely devalues you. And we are much happier on our own when you're with the wrong person. I think people see single moms and they feel bad for us. Like we were better off before when they have no idea, our life circumstances. And
right.
Yeah, I think it's more off on that they think that we're unhappy, and that we're really struggling and that we're broke and that, we have nothing going for us. I think that's sort of like the outside concept when people look at single moms.
Right, like almost pity. Oh, you're
right.
Single
Yeah,
mom.
like they feel bad for us.
Right. And we don't want people to feel bad for us. No.
Right, no.
We have to be pretty strong to do this. So,
yes, exactly.
We don't want sympathy. We might need help, but we don't want sympathy.
Yeah, I might need you to help me pick up my kids every now and then, but I don't need you to feel bad for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, when did you find out you were going to be a single mom? And like, what was your first reaction? Were you freaked out? Were you like, okay? Or how did it go?
So back whenever our son had his first birthday party, we had always had problems. Our relationship was not perfect. Looking back, like in hindsight, I was a very codependent person, especially when it came to my emotions. If he wasn't having a good day, I was not going to have a good day. And that's something that I kind of fixed with myself. But after his first birthday party, we really started to have problems, and it wasn't anything that I could fix. It was a lot of his behavior and a lot of, alcohol addictions that he had, and, inappropriate relationships with other people. And it was something I realized I wasn't going to be able to fix. But I kept telling myself, this is just a phase, just a rough patch. And then after, Thanksgiving, he ended up leaving. And his family really tried to kind of talk some sense into him and really tried to, you're making the wrong decision. They really tried to kind of guide him back, but he already made up his mind. And so it'd already been a couple of months and we were separated. Christmas had passed and he didn't show up for Christmas morning. And I thought, okay, that's kind of a big deal. And
Right. Yeah, that is a big deal, especially first Christmas. If it's
yeah,
a
and
yeah.
I was very close with his family. I love his family very much. I miss him. That was honestly one of the hardest parts for me leaving. It wasn't even leaving him. It was the family because he had a really big family and I really loved them and I saw them all the time. And in an effort to kind of get us back together, his dad, my ex-father-in-law, was like, come over because they always like were hosting family things. And he was like, come over
Right.
for New Year's Eve. Just come over, um, bring my grandson, everything's gonna be
Right.
fine. We're all gonna hang out. And it ended up being this not a good idea. And I remember my dad telling me, McKenna, I don't think you should go. And I'm
Right.
like, no, Dad, I'm gonna go. And I went anyway.
Right. We want to try, right? We always
Yes,
want to try. Let me
try
try.
one more
Yeah.
time. And it ended up being this, you know, nuclear blow up. And he told me in front of his whole family that he didn't want me anymore.
Oh
And
God.
yeah, it was really awful. And I remember being like, that was the first time that he had told me, like to my face, that he didn't want me. I mean,
So
all his
exciting,
actions
but
kind of said that he wasn't
right.
interested in me anymore, but it was like he finally told me, like, I don't want you anymore. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow, shock, right?
Yeah. And I was like, and I remember him and his dad got in a big argument, and I was like, kind of like in denial for about 2 weeks. I was really heavily like in denial for about 2 weeks. And I mean, by this time, we're like 2 weeks into January, and I'm kind of this last year. And I'm kind of thinking, I don't know. I just woke up one day and I was like, okay, this is it. And I kind of thought to myself that morning when I like accepted it, I'm like, he knew that. And there was a lot of other things that happened in December that were really hard for me. Like I lost a really close friend of mine. Um, and he didn't care,
Right. He wasn't there for you when
he
you
wasn't
needed
there for me
support.
at all. Like in any, like physically, emotionally, spiritually, none of that.
Right.
And I was starting at the end of that month of January, I was going to start dental hygiene school, and it was going to be really hard. And I'm
Right.
like, he left me knowing that I was going to start this huge year-long struggle of school and clinic and these long hours and studying every single day and testing and clinic. I'm like, he knew that, and he still left. And then I kind of thought to myself, yeah, he doesn't care about me. He left me at almost financially too, and really the most vulnerable time of my life
Right.
because I had no way to work. I had no way to earn any sort of income. Like I couldn't even pay my gas to go to school, and he knew that, and he left me. And that's when I kind of thought I just like had all these thoughts that afternoon, that like entire day, and then I thought, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be a single mom. Like this is actually going to happen. So I filed for divorce. And the only reason I hadn't, and it's so funny, people are like, well, how did you have the money? And I'm like, I didn't have the money when I
Right.
applied. We never have the money. Like when I applied
No.
for the school, and I had to do like a bunch of private loans to afford the school. And they'll usually ask if anybody hasn't gone through college or like higher education, they'll ask you if you want extra money to sort of like hold you off. They'll ask you, do you want to take out another $4,000 or $5,000, to kind of pay
Okay.
for
Yeah.
rent or like living or whatever that you need. And I remember I took out an extra $4,000, and that was going to be if anything happened. So I had enough money, to pay for daycare for the week or whatever. It's just, and I remember not telling him about it. I didn't tell him. And it was all under my maiden name. So he had no like financial ties to my school loans. So I didn't tell him because I didn't want him to know that I had that money. And
Right. Right.
because that was around the time that we were having problems. And I remember I used all of that $4,000 to get a retainer for the lawyer to file for it. I was just like sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna spend all this money. But that was the only way that I could afford it. And
Right.
I'm so glad that I did. But it was a very like lucky, like a cute circumstance, that I was able to.
That you took it out not knowing if you were going to need it. It ended up helping you catapult out of a bad place.
Yes.
So, yeah, great that it worked out.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, like, what was your biggest struggles when you were going through that, besides financially and stuff? I mean, when someone says, okay, I don't want you anymore, and we have a kid together, you kind of like dropped the ball in your lap, right? Because he wasn't like
doing
worried about anything. So you were like, I got to be the mom. I got to be the student. I got to do it all.
Yeah, I had, it was like, it's crazy. And I know this isn't always the circumstance, but every other circumstance that I've seen, it's like the man is just able to walk away, like wipe their hands, be like, okay, I'm out. And we're just here with all, and it's not always the case, but like the majority of the time, like we're left here to like scramble everything and pick everything up and like rewrite everything that we had planned.
Right.
And I am very lucky. So at the time, whenever he left, we were still living with my parents. So like my day-to-day didn't really change.
Okay. That's good.
I always had my own vehicle. So I didn't lose a vehicle when he left. I had a very, very low truck payment. So I wasn't worried about that. So I still had, a vehicle. I still had a very comfortable place that I was living. I still had my parents with me. So nothing like that. But I really struggled with like staying in the present. It was really hard for me to like not wander off in my thoughts. Like, what is he doing? I wonder what he's doing. Like, why didn't he call his son, tell him good night? Like, should I call him so he tells his son good night? Like, or should I not? And I remember realizing whenever I did finally file for divorce, I kind of looked back, like I lost so much time, like present time with my kid, because I was worried about what he was doing. I lost so many good memories and moments. I remember I had so many awful days that didn't have to be awful days because of his actions. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a year and a half, but I didn't even get to enjoy my baby because he just made my life so miserable and so like emotionally, like there was so much emotional turmoil that I couldn't even enjoy being a single mom. I wasn't valued for anything that I did. He didn't appreciate me. I mean, it was even little things. Like I remember one time I would lay out all his clothes in the morning before he would go to work. And I was a very good wife.
So nice. I would never do that.
That's the thing too. Wow. That when I tell people, the kind of the dynamic of our relationship, they're just shocked. And I'm like, and I know I'm not perfect, but I was a good wife. Like I cooked dinner every single night. Sometimes I would make him breakfast. Sometimes I would bring him lunch to work. He had homemade food cooked for him every single night. I did all the laundry. I cleaned the house. I have a huge garden. I would can. I was a complete homemaker wife.
Wow. So you're like, mom and wife.
He just expected it. But I remember one morning I did it out of love, but one morning I had to lay his clothes out for him, and I would even pair his socks for him. I did so many things.
Oh my goodness.
I know, looking back, I'm like, why did I do all that stuff? But because that's just naturally, that's who I am, but one morning I'd laid his clothes out for him in the bathroom because he would kind of take a shower in the morning and then he would go to work. And I remember he was banging on like the shower wall, kind of like, I guess like calling me in, like he needed me for something, So I go in and it's like 6 something in the morning, and he's in the shower and he just reamed me up and down because the socks, like they weren't dried all the way. Like I had paired them. I guess they were still kind of halfway wet. And I just remember being so like, I wasn't even mad at him. That's how like brainwashed I was. I was like, oh my God, why would I do that? Like, I'm sorry. Let me get you socks or something. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, it's crazy. Like the things that we allow people to do to us.
But we don't put up our boundaries, and we just like we get what we accept, right? What we tolerate. We're like, oh, okay, if I do everything for you, you're just gonna keep taking everything I do.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was just crazy but in retrospect, when your question was, my biggest struggle was I had to realize that like you said, I had to kind of I had to set the standard. Like
Yeah.
it was now, I got to start over completely. I get to completely start over with what I'm going to accept, you know? And I really struggled with like, well, I don't know what I want. Like, I don't know what is
Right.
okay, And because for so long, like I just accepted like nothing,
Yeah.
And
Bottom
I
of the barrel. Yeah.
yeah, like I didn't even get the bare minimum. Like I look back and I'm like, God, like that is just crazy, Uh,
Right. Right. So how did you like cope with that? How did you finally how did you cope with that once you were out of the relationship and you knew, okay, this is not my person because I wouldn't be treated like this if this was my person. This is, how did you start to cope with it after you knew it was over?
I I spent a lot of time by myself. I did not I kind of made the conscious choice to not go to other people. And I didn't isolate myself, but I made the conscious choice to whenever I had really bad feelings, like I was just really missing him and I was really lonely and I wanted to talk to him, I just made it a point to keep myself busy with things
Okay.
that I did alone. So like I really threw myself into things that I enjoyed. Um
Oh,
that I could do at home. Like I crochet, I garden and I cook and I just did things to keep me busy and it was something that I had to think about while I was doing it. So like it kept my mind in the present and I was thinking about what I was doing and not how I was feeling. And I wasn't pushing my feelings away because I made sure like when I was sad, I cried. When I was angry, I let myself
getting it
it
out. You're not holding
was,
it in.
but it was really, I think something that really helped me was that I really made sure to stay in the present. And I was very lucky right after I filed for divorce, like 2 weeks later, I started hygiene school. And that was like tripped my world all the way upside down. And I already had an associate degree of science, but this school has, and I joke about it all the time, but the program really saved me from making bad choices for myself because
Oh,
it's kept me so busy. I don't have time to think about him or what he's doing. I don't have the energy to argue with him because I have other things, I have other priorities that I need to deal with. And I was able to make friends that were like of my emotional capacity, and I think that's really
right.
important that you're with people that, you're on the same level with emotionally. And that's really what saved me. And I think that's really one of the reasons why I actually didn't go back and I didn't, fall back into another relationship with him was because I was so busy. I didn't have time. I all of a sudden had all these things that I had to do and all these other priorities that he was like way down on the list. It completely
Right.
took from my mind. I didn't even think about him, because I had so
So,
much to think
because
about.
you were so busy and you were
Yeah.
changing, right? You were growing, and
Yeah.
now
My
you
whole life
got out
changed.
of him.
Crazy.
Right. So now you have a co-parenting relationship with him now.
Yes.
Okay. So is that still a work in progress? Most are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, I feel like it's lifelong learning.
Yes,
uh,
for sure.
he, and I don't want to talk bad about him. I don't think he's a bad person. I think that we were both raised in completely different environments, and he wasn't raised to have any sort of like emotional capacity. He
Okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
raised, things like boundaries and self care and mental health. He wasn't raised, he was like raised in like a survival mode situation. Not that he
Right.
was raised with any sort of abuse, but he was just not raised in that sort of environment to understand the capacity of like how you hurt other people and how that affects them,
Okay.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of like an up and down thing. That's kind of normal with most co-parenting relationships. I think he has finally realized that I think for a long time he was in denial that this was actually going on and like we were actually getting a divorce. And he has good days and bad days.
Right.
He has days where he's okay whenever sees me walk out the door after he picks up our son because, I've got a date that I'm going to. Some days he's fine with that. And then other days it's not okay, but,
Right.
the only thing that I try to do is I don't bring my emotions into it,
Yeah.
you can't like reason whenever you can't reason with them. I'm like, we don't reason with terrorists over here. We have rules and boundaries and that's it,
You're right. You're right. You have to treat them professional, like you would like a
Yeah.
colleague,
It's like a
because you get
drop
caught
off,
up.
pick up situation, and sometimes, and it's kind of like I've developed a trauma response to him. I can tell when he's going to act the way he does. And
Okay.
I'm lucky. I still live with my parents. I'll have like my dad staying at the door with me, so I don't have to hear him say something, or because he won't. Whatever my parents
Right.
and it keeps it, very formal where there's no emotions involved, and I don't have to deal with it. Like the emotional.
Good. Yeah. Back up.
Yeah, the backhanded compliments or whatever. But I always, everybody likes to complain, right, about their situation sometimes, but it could be way worse. That's what I tell myself.
Right.
It could be, I do think I'm very lucky with the situation. I think long term, I don't think we're going to be the parents that have to sit on either side of the basketball court whenever we're watching play basketball. We'll be able to, within reasonable distance of each other. But yeah, I really make sure to, I'm finally able to like emotionally remove myself from like his.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great, because that takes
a long
work.
time. It's been almost a year.
Yeah, it does take work. It does take work. So tell me, what does your life look like now? I mean, what are you doing now, and how is your son doing? Is he adjusted, or you feel it? What are you moving towards?
He's great. He's 2.5 now. I am finishing my dental hygiene school.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm so close. This has like been the most stressful thing I feel like I'll ever do in my entire life.
Yay! Good. Good
so
for you.
close. Yes. I'll graduate in 8 weeks, I think, less than 8 weeks. Yeah, it's been like 18 months.
Congratulations.
Weeks, and I'll start working, and I plan on doing like a online program with Louisiana State University because I'll finish with 2 associate degrees. I'm like, I need a bachelor's degree.
Okay. So that's what you're going toward.
Yeah, I'm going towards a bachelor's degree in public health. And then eventually I'll probably get a master's degree in public health and work somewhere within like the VA system as a dental hygienist. And then I'll work like scholastically, I'll probably become a clinical teacher in 5 or 6 years. But I have like a lot of little goals for myself. I really want to write a book. Not like a book about relationships, but I really want to write a children's book. I have little goals that I've set for myself, but everything has kind of just gone on track. I've been able to finish school. I plan on moving out in a couple of years. I have a lot of financial goals that I've set for myself, and I'm just really lucky the way that my entire situation is kind of rolled out, that I don't have any sort of, that wasn't a setback.
Right.
It wasn't a setback for me. It was almost like it helped me, because it helps me. Like, it didn't set me back in any way.
So I feel like you redefined yourself when you invented the person you
Yes.
are, and now next time not to be setting out clothes or whatever. You're like, okay, I am gonna put up my boundaries now.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I really did. I really did like completely reinvent myself. And I remember, sometimes my exes, I don't even know who you are. I'm like, that's because I'm a different person. You don't know me anymore.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm not that person before. Yeah, I'm a new and improved me.
Yes.
Right?
Really,
and that takes work to get to, but I think all single moms need that, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot stay stuck. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this. But, so I want to know, what would you tell your younger self? If you could go back in time.
Whenever I graduated high school when I was 16, and then I left 6 hours away and went on a rodeo team whenever I was 17 years old at, oh my gosh, my mind's blanking. Where did I go to college? Jeez. A state school. I can't remember. But I wish I could tell myself I stayed there for 3 semesters. I wish, for one, I wish my parents would not have let me come home. I really would have, because I miss him, and you know,
Oh, okay, so you went home for him. You
I
weren't going
did.
home for.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Stephen F. Austin.
Okay.
That's where I went. I went to Stephen F. Austin University in Nacogdoches for 3
Okay.
semesters. I remember after December, I spent 2 weeks with him, and I didn't want to go back. And I wish my parents would have told me, "No, McKenna, you need to stay in school. You need to finish." But they didn't. They trusted me, because typically I make good decisions, but that was not one of them. I wish I could have just told myself, like, really. And I see younger girls, and I still call her my sister-in-law. I guess my ex-sister-in-law. She's young. She's starting college. I think she's in her 3rd semester. Like, just focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Truly focus on yourself. Focus on what you need to do for yourself. Don't even have them into the equation of your life yet. Like, do what you want to do first. Do all the things that you want to do first. Like, I remember whenever I was that young, I couldn't even imagine my life without him. All the things I wanted to do in life, I didn't want to do if I didn't have him.
Right.
And I'm like, God, I wish someone would. And my parents really tried. My parents really tried their hardest to get me, but I wasn't budging. I was young and dumb
And
and
love and yeah. Hey.
blissfully unaware of all the tragedies that were ahead. But
Right.
I really
So
wish
would
I
that
could
be your
control myself.
yeah? Would that be your advice for other single moms?
Yeah,
What
just
would you tell them?
truly, just focus on yourself. And I know this, like, that sounds so cliche, but once you get out of the relationship, and it took me a long time. Once I left, I focused on myself, and it finally started to hit me a couple of months ago. And I remember telling myself, he didn't really traumatize me that badly. I'm resilient. It really didn't change me as a person. I don't have any of these long-standing, implications from that relationship. But when I started to meet other people, and when I started to kind of open up to other people, and their look on their face when I would tell them, they would ask. I wouldn't just, like, mouth throw up all my traumas to them, but they would ask.
Right. Right.
And they were just in shock. And then it kind of, like, you don't realize once you leave, and then you realize you develop these other, after you've healed yourself, and you're not looking for, like, a rebound relationship, you realize all of the things that they did to you that really changed you as a person. It changed your, like, aspect on things. And it takes a long time when you get out of this fog for you to really realize, like, oh my God, that stuff was awful.
Right.
Like, you have to give yourself time. Like, I wish I could tell, like, every single mom out there, you've got to, like, walk away and give yourself time to realize how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it sounds bad. I can look back and laugh and be like, that was crazy. I cannot believe I let them do that to me, because I've moved on. But for a long time, I thought it wasn't that bad. And then you look back and realize how bad it was. And
well, you think, right, that was my younger self. That's the best I could do at the time, right?
Yeah.
You'd be like,
you were like,
wow, I thought that was okay then. I thought it was okay to be mistreated. It was normal. Right. Right. Exactly.
And I wish I could tell them, like, I wish I could tell single moms, because I know it's like, it's kind of a thing that we do, right? We get out of the relationship, and then we need to be with somebody because we don't want to feel alone in our feelings, and because it's scary and it's very painful, and it's like a very raw process to deal with it all on your own. But that's really the only way to do it. Like,
agreed.
And it's like, it's very emotional. I remember there was some nights that my mom would take my son, like, go play with him or whatever, and I would just sit in my truck and cry.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily that, like, I missed him, but it was just that it was so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, like, that emotional I have my parents, but I didn't have that, like, man to lean on, even though I never really could, but now I really didn't. I didn't have.
Right.
And I really wish I could just tell all the single moms that it really does get better when you leave. Right. And, like, the fog comes out and you realize how awful it was, and that, once you heal yourself and you've, like, you've done the work on yourself, and you've gone to therapy and read the divorce books and the single mom books and all that stuff, you realize, like, the world is yours. Like, you can do whatever you want. You know,
Awesome.
you can
Yeah.
choose to accept what you want. Like I have a list. It sounds so cliche, but I have a list in my phone of like bullet points that he has to hit, you know, for it to,
Awesome.
you know what I
These are
mean?
your
And I told,
credentials to
yeah, like
yeah.
this is like a non-negotiable list. So you have to meet all this criteria, you know, like, like I know it exists, you know,
Right,
and
right.
like don't change, like
So,
don't make it unrealistic, right? But like don't change your list for anybody. Like don't tweak your list to make somebody fit because there's somebody out there that does fit truly, you know.
right.
I don't know how many people there are in this world, like 8 billion people on this planet. Like there's somebody, you know, and maybe he's not in your hometown. Maybe he's
Right.
not next door or something. You know, maybe look for him somewhere else that, you know, he found your ex, maybe not in a bar, maybe a library or something, you know, but,
Right.
or a
Sometimes
convention.
you don't even expect it.
Yeah, you know,
When
and
you're not looking. Sometimes not
yeah,
looking is when you
sometimes they
find
find
it.
you, you know, let them find you, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
also what I want to tell single moms is like don't tweak your list to make him fit.
Right. Don't settle, people.
Yeah.
Do not settle.
Yeah, don't settle. Yeah, don't settle for, you know, crumbs because
Right.
and at the end of things you're gonna realize like, okay, now I gotta start over, I gotta start over with somebody else because I kinda let this and I let this and I let this pass, but
Yeah.
just heal yourself. Like don't I think about that too with single moms. Like just focus on yourself and heal yourself and the time will come when you're ready for another relationship, but it won't be exhausting. You know, he's
Right.
not gonna be exhausting and he's not gonna bring stress to your life on all those other things that, you know, maybe the other guy did.
Right. He's going
You
to be the person you want. He's going to be supportive. You won't be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect, but you'll know. You'll know. You don't. If you see red flags, please believe them.
Thank you for giving us your time today and listening in. Remember, you're smart, beautiful, and you got this. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more great tips for single moms.